Welcome to the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast, recorded live from the cornfields of Central Illinois. We're all about thriving marriages and living alcohol-free. Welcome to episode 101 for March 24th, 2025.
Well, hello there, children. Welcome back to the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast. I am Matt, along with the always lovely and fluffy hair Coach Amy. How are you, my love?
Fluffy.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am spectacular. We just got off a fantastic interview that you all are about to listen to here in a minute.
I know. This was so good.
Austin Karr. Yes,
Thank
stick
you,
around for
Austin.
this because Austin is the happy, positive, love his haircut.
You guys.
We
You're
go
like
to
in
the same
that
barber.
club.
Yeah, dad joke. of the month.
You are in the club.
We're in the club.
But don't forget, if you are loving the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast, even if you are just liking it, like us, subscribe to this podcast.
Share it with a friend.
Share it.
Or as I say, share with an enemy. It doesn't matter to us.
Yeah.
And don't always forget, but some of the times forget to go down to those links. There's lots of fun stuff in those links, discounts and tips. But we also have our Beyond Spirits, our 7 tips for starting your AF journey, as well as our weekly marriage meeting guide that we love.
Yes, we do love that. We use it
Every week, literally.
I'm actually working on a
I love this.
productivity
I love
because
this.
you guys know I struggle from
Shiny
ADHD or whatever. Thinking about getting a brain scan. Stay tuned.
But you made this new thing. You came up with this thing. I'm like, this is really cool.
No, but I've done my own brain dump. I've gone to I've been taught how to do this, and I'm like, I need to just create my own how this could work. I've kind of expanded it just a little bit or tweaked it a little bit, and I guess we could go ahead and put that in here.
I don't know if it's done. We can.
I mean,
I don't know. Check the links below. If she's done it, it'll be there. If she hasn't, it won't.
Well, I'm calling it it's something I actually do. It works when you use it.
It's like anything else.
It really does. It's like
the weekly marriage guide is the same way.
It works when you use it. I've only I had one person tell me, "Oh, Amy, it's like overwhelming, but don't get overwhelmed by my graphic." I didn't think it was overwhelmed, but I just laughed because I'm like, it could be.
There may be a version 2. You can always tweak it.
Yeah. Or it could be the version 2 could just be like, here's the instructions. Because we all learn differently.
That is true. That is true.
I love a good visual. I'm like, ooh, I like this. Oh, and then I go to this step over here and this step here. And
some people love a good podcast, especially those listening to this one.
Yeah. And thank you so much. We've been busy and it's just kind of gotten away from us.
I know. All of a sudden I was doing the notes for this week and I'm like, oh, it's been a month.
Well, and we had one setup, and then we had a thunderstorm, and we had
no internet.
Yeah, it was just kind of a mess. And then
we had spring break with our daughter home, so that was both weekends were kind of.
And I'm a part of a community of sober business owners called the Sober Hive, and I guess I could get you the link for that too.
There you go.
Our friend Maggie Claessens and Terry Patterson created this community, and I actually met Austin. I'd been following him, but I met him. He was in this group too. So
there you go.
Really, if you are a sober business owner and you are wanting to connect with other business owners who are doing life alcohol free, let me know, and I'll put that. I'll get you all that information, Matt. And you will not post this until I get you that information.
Oh, let's not do that because they may never hear that if that's the case.
No.
All right, Amy, let's get to our drinks of the week, which are not, I was going to say brought to you by our friends at Go Brewing. I bought all these beers, so it's not really, they sent the beer. I paid for it, so it's not like it was sponsored. But this, Amy, yours is a brand new offering from them.
Oh my gosh. This is so good. This is the Mañana Banana Pancake Stout. And it is so good. And Matt will show you a picture. Yeah. It's the cutest. I love the picture.
Gorilla graphic.
It's a gorilla eating
they really upped
a stack of banana pancakes made with real bananas. It's
like dessert in a can.
It is so good. In fact, you brought it up and I'm like, I want to have it right now.
We can always buy more too, so you can.
But anyways,
yes,
I'll have it this evening.
You can always use our get $5 off and use our link to gobrewing.com in the description. Which I'm so glad they brought this back because it kind of looks like me when I was young. It's their Irish Red, the Bad Arse Irish Red. one of my favorites.
When you dress up like a crazy leprechaun.
I could probably pull that look off.
You probably could. You could look like the crazy leprechaun.
Yes, but I do love this every year. I'm glad to see them bring that back, and our light bulb is turning off. Anyway, but no. So check out Go Brewing. They also have new sparkling waters, and they have a new IPA that I need to order.
I know. We need to get some. We need to
go back to Lafayette and go to NA Generation NA. See what new stuff is there. Get some mash gang.
Well, maybe we'll do
It's about the time of the year we went last time. It's been a year since we've been there. I know. Time flies.
Wow, that's crazy.
All right, Coach Amy, tell me about Austin Karr, our fantastic interview.
All right, hold on here.
Fantastic because of him, I think, not because of us, but
yeah, Austin is awesome. Let me pull that up. Sorry about that. Austin Karr is a sobriety and happiness coach who believes happiness is the opposite of addiction. With over a decade of sobriety and years of coaching experience, he helps people move beyond just quitting drinking to build lives that are exciting, fulfilling, and truly their own. Austin's approach centers on self-trust, emotional awareness, and intentional living, what he calls the 3 keys to happiness: knowing who you are, trusting yourself, and living with intention. He lives out in Denver, Colorado with his wife and 2 kids. And Austin started his commitment on his journey to just 100 days. And that is one of his programs, is committing to 100 days. So here we go to the interview. All right. We are super excited. Austin Karr, welcome to the podcast. And we're just going to jump in. We have been laughing and having such a great time. And you are a happiness and sobriety coach. Did I get that right?
You got it exactly right.
Yay. All right. So we'll just jump in. Tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you're from, if you have family, and maybe right before we get started, like one thing that you do that you really have fun doing.
Oh my gosh, so many questions. Okay. I think I can should I do them in order or should I do them in reverse order?
It doesn't matter.
I struggle with this idea of like, what do you do to have fun? Partially because I have a 13-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old daughter. My wife and I have been married. We just celebrated 22 years of marriage.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you so much. On March 15th. So it was very exciting for us. We actually got to go out on a date night. So because our daughter's 13 years old now, so she can babysit, right? It's fantastic.
Woo!
It's like a built-in babysitter. Saves us so much money.
yeah.
What do I like to do for fun? As a happiness coach, I sometimes struggle with this idea of like, what do I like to do for fun? I love to help people in their recovery and sobriety. I will say that it is such a gift to be able to help people, but I love to travel. My wife and I take every opportunity we can. We travel with our whole family. We travel with our extended family. That is one of the things that I look forward to all the time is what's our next trip? Where are we going? Someplace new. For my 10-year anniversary, my wife and I of sobriety, my wife and I went to an all-inclusive adults only resort, which was fantastic. We spent a week together just hanging out and by the pool and eating amazing food and wandering around together. And I love those opportunities to travel and explore new things. And that is one of my favorite things. I also am a homebody. So being a Friday night is movie night in my house. My 2 girls, my wife and I, we get takeout, we watch a movie together. That is how we spend our Friday night. So I think like most people, I have these 2 parts of my personality, that outgoing and wanting to be going and doing things. And then I cannot wait for Friday night to sit on the couch and do nothing with my family. So I didn't answer any of your other questions.
It's all right. Well, where are you from?
I'm from Denver, Colorado. I'm originally from the Midwest, but I've been in Denver for almost 20 years.
Oh, that's so great. Well, we love it out there. It's beautiful. We shared that we had honeymooned out there. Maybe we need to travel out to that area again.
Just for, yeah.
Why not?
Let's go.
It's so great. Place. But you know what? I wanted to jump into your story. I found you not too long ago, just on Instagram, and you're always so happy and positive, but I don't really know your backstory. I know that you just celebrated 10 years, alcohol free or sober or whatever we want to call it. But I still look to people who are that much ahead of me and go, that's awesome. I hope I can get there. I mean, it's that weird like thought that our brain will do to us. But yeah, so I wanted to find out, tell us more about like, what was your story?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in the Midwest. I think just a normal childhood growing up. But one of the things that was different, I think, about my growing up versus so many others was I didn't start drinking until I was in college. So even growing up in a small town with not a lot to do, it was the kind of place that had the blinking stoplight after 8 o'clock at night, just that kind of a town. And but I didn't discover drinking then. I was really involved in school. In extracurricular, not the school part, but like all the other parts of school. And I decided I didn't want to go to college. So graduated from high school. I started working. And then like a year into that journey, I was like, I don't know, all my friends are in college. That looks pretty fun. That looks like a lot more fun than what I'm doing. So after a year and a half of working, I went off to college and I discovered alcohol that first weekend that I was in college. And I, for a long time, felt like alcohol made me something else. It made me outgoing. It helped me be the life of the party, all of those things. But what I've come to realize in the 10 years of my recovery is that what alcohol did was quiet this voice in my head that had convinced me I wasn't something. I am an outgoing person. I love being around people. I enjoy going to a party and an event, talking and meeting new people. And that has always been true of me. But I had convinced myself that wasn't true, that I was this shy, quiet little boy. So when I discovered alcohol, that voice, which was actually a lie, got quieted. So it was really helpful. I was able to go to college. I was able to be the life of the party, outgoing, all of these things. But alcohol was always there to tell me that I was that outgoing person. And eventually I became fully convinced that I couldn't do anything without alcohol. It had taken over every aspect of my life. So I started drinking at 19. I realized really early on that I think my relationship with alcohol was not like even my peers in college. It was something different about it. And even into my first job, I realized that this is causing problems. My wife and I got married our senior year of college. Now, most of our friends waited till after they graduated, but all of our friends had their weddings booked for like that summer. So we're like, let's get married before everybody else. We got married spring break of our senior year.
Wow.
And so we went through the end of so we got married young, which was awesome in some ways and has been problematic in some ways. Also had a massive addiction to alcohol, which caused all kinds of problems. But at 24, I was like, I got to kick this. This can't continue like this. And so at 24 years old, I attended my first AA meeting. I was like, I'm going to get sober. I think that this is what I need to do. That lasted a few months, but that was my first attempt at like, hey, I got to figure this out. After that little attempt, things just got progressively worse, which is not surprising when you think about like how alcohol invades our life. But in this process of realizing that like alcohol was convincing me that I needed it, that it had to be part of my life, that I couldn't do anything without it. I started to become convinced that I couldn't get a job. I couldn't do my work without it. I couldn't see friends without it. I couldn't go to the movies without it. And then eventually I couldn't wash the dishes without it. I couldn't mow the lawn without it. I couldn't wake up without it. And it just invaded every part of who I was. So I spent 10 years. I call it my lost decade. I spent 10 years between 2000, when I was 24 to when I was 34 years old. I spent that drinking. On the outside, it looked like my life was great. I had jobs and the cars and everything, but inside, I was so confused about why my life was so hard and why I couldn't accomplish the things that I wanted to and why my relationship was struggling. And alcohol was always there to tell me that, like, it's fine. You're fine. And that kept me going for a really long time. I fast forward to kind of the end. I got this job that was like my dream job. It was the job that I was supposed to have. It was the job that my resume said, this is your like career job. And I just started drinking the way I wanted to. Like I had been drinking in the morning. I had been drinking all day. It was a remote job. I was a salesperson. I was encouraged to go out and do things. And I was just like, forget it. I'm going to drink exactly the way I want to. So I'd wake up in the morning and drink, and I would have a drink at lunch, and I would drink until 4 a.m, and I would get a couple hours of sleep, and I would wake up and do it the next day.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
2 years of my life.
And the whole time you're thinking, this is a good time and this is fun. And I like this, right? I mean,
it was amazing. I don't know how I was convinced that was the life that I wanted to live. Like it was miserable, but at the same time, I enjoyed it so much. And that is a really hard thing. I think especially for family members, when you talk to someone and they're like, how can they enjoy this? And you're like, they're enjoying it and they're not. Like I was miserable and happy at the same time every day. I was physically addicted to alcohol. I had tremors daily. When I didn't drink, I had severe withdrawal symptoms. And my wife was fed up. She was.
I was going to ask. Yeah. Like what? Yeah, that was going to be, I think, how did your wife drink? I guess is one thing.
I once called her a drinker in a video that I did, and she corrected me to say she is not a drinker. She has a drink occasionally. And by occasionally, I mean maybe once a month. And she does not think about it between.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, it does not occur to her to drink. So the last 2 years, we kind of lived separate lives. She lived her life. I lived my life. We were together and she was done. She was ready to walk. She was making plans, figuring out how she was going to move on with her life because she was like, this is not the life I want to live. I'm done. And I think it took her a long time of, building up her strength to get ready to make that move. But she was days away from walking out the door. And my family came to me on January 22nd of 2015, my parents, my sister, my wife, and said, you have to get help. You have to do something. We really would encourage you to go to residential, to some inpatient treatment. But at minimum, we need to go to the hospital tonight. And I don't know why, honestly, but I said yes. I said, I'll do it. And I said I would do 100 days. I would be sober for 100 days. And I really, truly believed that I could figure out how to drink in moderation in that 100 days. And then I could go back to drinking. I did not want to be sober.
Moderation, every drinker's best friend.
Yeah.
Oh man, if only I could have.
That's the golden. That's like the Willy Wonka golden ticket.
I'm going to give you 100 days, and I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah,
and then I can drink. And
alcohol will magically not have a hold on me anymore.
I love the fact that you said 100. Yeah. I did a 21-day challenge and was like, all right, 21 days. I wasn't, like I'm an overachiever. 21 days. I'm going to get this.
Yeah.
Did it work?
You
never went back, so you don't know.
I did it, like that experiment curiosity mentality. It's like, wow, this is really good.
Oh my God. It was the worst thing I found out, that like life got so much better. I was like, come on.
Yeah. Yes,
this has been the problem the whole time.
Surprise.
So did you do your 100 days, or did you start trying to moderate?
No,
after
I did the 100 days. One of the
Okay.
things I said was, I will do anything that anybody asks of me. So originally I agreed to do residential, but I couldn't get a bed, as is so common. So I signed up for an outpatient program, which was great. I did, weekly classes. I met amazing people. On day 25, I got fired from that dream job. I had a really awesome meeting with my boss and his boss, who flew in from New Jersey. We sat in a hotel lobby and they asked me how it was going. And I said, not well. And they were like, what do you think we should do? And I think we should go our different ways. And they said, we agree. So we went our different ways. So that was day 25 of my sobriety. Shortly thereafter, the car that I had been driving, evidently you have to do regular maintenance on cars. Who knew?
They say so. Yeah. They
Yeah, you
recommend it.
like change the oil and those kinds of things. So the mechanic was like, "Hey, that grinding noise you've been hearing, that's metal shavings in your engine, and
Oh,
your car's done." That was all within like the first 90 days. So I was like, the consequences of the drinking were carrying into sobriety. But all that time I stayed sober. I said I would do 100 days. I agreed to do 100 days. And on day 101, my wife said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I think I'm going to do another 100 days." And that's part of the reason that I celebrate 100-day increments, is because I kind of still think of myself doing 100 days at a time. I've just done it 37 times. So
That's awesome. I love that.
well, and I think it's interesting that you start when you stop drinking, you start seeing some of the things that you neglected when you were like, your eyes open up and you're like, oh, I didn't do maintenance on my car because I was too busy drinking. I didn't do, you didn't take care of your marriage. You didn't take care of all these, all these things. You start being like, oh, but your story's, not the 100 days, but the same idea of like, I'm going to quit, then I'll start moderating. And you quit long enough to realize, I think I'm just going to keep on trying this. Cause I did the same thing. I'm like, I'll do another 30 days. Amy said she'll do, and you start realizing that, oh, you know what? I don't think I need this in my life. Like the pros are way outweighing the con, or the pros of staying away from it are outweighing the pros of going back to it. So
totally. There's this like shift that happens, I think, in your mind where you're like, wait, I don't need that. It isn't necessary to my life at all. And as a matter of fact, it makes my life way harder when I drink. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like, do you think you could moderate again? Do you think you could go back to it? I'm like, I don't really care if I could or couldn't. Alcohol doesn't add anything to my life. It only can take from me.
Yeah.
So what would be the point? Even if I could drink in moderation, it doesn't add anything to my life.
Right.
Yeah. You were talking about that voice. Did that voice start to come back up when you quit drinking?
It took a really long time for me to figure out who I was. Like a shockingly long time to figure out myself. When I first got sober, I started to believe the lie again that I was this introvert, that I was that shy little boy, that this narrative that I had convinced myself of. And through time and therapy, honestly, I figured out that like so much of what I believed about myself, I had to start to challenge and understand. And it became this long journey. But, and I took action to start to convince myself of something different. So early in my recovery, in the first couple of years, I started a nonprofit. And part of that was to help other people to feel like I could give back. But I also understood that like I have to raise money and and that's how we're going to help people. And so that became part of my journey in rediscovering myself too, is like, I can be outgoing. I don't mind talking to people about these things. I enjoy these conversations. So a lot of what I discovered about myself was through action and just kind of experimentation.
Yeah, isn't that true? It's like, I got to try to do this. So when, I want to ask you about like, your wife was on her way out. So what happened at the beginning then? Like you're moving forward and everything, because there's obviously, there's things that happen. How did that process of healing your relationship go? Like, can you expand on that at all, or?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't remember a lot of the beginning. I always tell people the last 90 days of my addiction and the first 90 days of my sobriety were very similar in that they're super foggy and I don't remember a ton of it. One of the things that I agreed to in the beginning, and I think has been something that has carried me along here, is anything somebody asked me to do, I did, or I tried to. So one of the things that I started doing in the very beginning was, my wife said, I want you to come to bed at the same time that I go to bed. And so you come to bed in our bed and you stay and we go to bed at the same time. And I said, yeah, I'll do that. We need you to do some kind of treatment, whether that's inpatient or outpatient or something. And I said, yes, I'll do that. And I became really committed to this idea that when people ask me to do something, I can do that. I can at least try. And
Mm.
so I think that was a good start to rebuilding our relationship. I have an amazing wife. I'm so incredibly lucky to have her in my life. And I think we've both taken this stance of we just need to listen to each other. And she's super supportive when I have a craving or a trigger or something comes up or I'm worried. She can do the same thing when she has something come up like, this is really bothering me. We have a saying that we use in our household called the bad times. That's what we refer to it as. Everything before when I was drinking is called the bad times. And so we talk about that reminds me of the bad times. And so I think that that's an opportunity for us to have conversations about the way things were in a way that's productive and continue to move forward. We did do couples counseling as well. We had done it when I was drinking. We did a little bit more when I quit. I obviously got really involved in my outpatient program, and I've spent a lot of time working on myself, and so is she.
Mm-hmm.
And we do those things independently, right? We're both working on ourselves. And I think that has what's made this so strong is that we understand that we have to make ourselves better for each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and communication, right? You really you touched on that. It's like, that is one thing that gets muted when you're drinking. It's like, well, I don't want to talk about, I'll just have another drink and that'll bury that push that way down deep, and that is what I think is the core to the erosion of a relationship in general. But when you're drinking, it makes it even worse, because I know our community, of course, we're marriage coaches, but we should be able to communicate, I hope. But at the same time, our communication is in general, when we quit drinking, it's like, we're not both hiding behind a glass and having these superficial conversations. Like, we'll have real conversations. And I think the more real conversations you start having and kind of mature in that, the more you realize some of them can be hard, but at the end of the day, if you're openly communicating, you'll move through it and you'll be better together. Right. But when you're drinking, it's like, whatever answer you want to hear, and let's just move along. Right.
Yeah. I think so much of addiction requires lying too. And that is
Mm-hmm.
erodes. I say you cannot be an active addiction and be telling the truth. You have to lie.
Brother, I poured vodka in NA beer to hide my extra drinking when I was moderating from Amy.
Right.
So,
I remember a day
right there,
my wife came downstairs. I had a drink in front of me and she's like, "Why are you drinking?" And I said, "I'm not." And she was like, "I can see the drink in front of you on the table." And I was like, "It's just Coke." And it was like 90% rum and 10% Coke. I was like, she could probably smell it across the room. Like, I had to lie to her at that moment. And so I think it requires lying. And then when you get sober, you're like, I didn't know how to not lie in the beginning. Like, that was a skill that I really had to work on, was like telling the truth all the time.
Well, and that I think that starting drinking trigger of, like, whether it's how you were brought up or just your personality type. Like, I was the same way. Like, I felt like I couldn't be social without it. Like, I didn't know how to talk to people. Like, I couldn't do certain things without it because I needed that extra mental social lubricant, or I just couldn't do it. And I can, and I do, and it's all fine, and boring things are boring. So that's okay. Right.
Cleaning out the closet is boring sometimes. Right.
Yeah. And I love how you brought up, like, how it infused itself into every area. So I laugh because I tell people, I'm like, well, on Sunday afternoons, which I never drank on Sundays. that was the big
Why
rule.
did you use quotes there?
No, like, I don't, that's I guess me. I never drink on Sundays.
Oh, gotcha.
Like that. Like, that was my thing.
Except
it was like,
when I do.
Except I did, because laundry was so taxing that I had to have a glass of wine. And I laugh now, but it really was true. It's like, oh gosh, I got to do laundry, but I got to have a drink with it because this. And I'm like, now I sit and think, laundry's so easy.
Right.
And
I find laundry to be super enjoyable, by the way.
It's fine. It's like, I can do it.
It's like downtime. Nobody bothers me. I can put on a show and just fold. I'm doing something.
But I think I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just feel like that giving it alcohol, basically, we gave it. I know certain coaches, and I've heard certain people, we will say, oh, well, we give it a job from different things. It was like a partner. Like alcohol had become like just
Everything will be better with
everything,
alcohol.
a friend. And I think it's really hard, especially for so many people to quit drinking when they see everyone around them who has their partner, their little alcohol buddy.
Yeah.
And they're like, they're like, well, I can't do this
Right.
without it. I can't do life without it. How can I do anything? How can I do any social event without it? And I just have found some of the messages that you've brought up. It's like, well, you can do anything without you can do life without it. So
How was that back at like 10 years ago? So 10 years ago, those who don't know, the NA drink space was almost non-existent, especially compared to today, right? Like you had O'Doul's and that was about it, right? O'Doul's and water were your two things.
Yeah.
What were your go-to, like how did you handle like going to a social situation where you didn't have all the options that could be an option today for people?
I drank a lot of sparkling water, like a lot of club soda, so much club soda. Here's a hack that I learned. So we did a college reunion when I was like 6 months sober. So I hadn't been like really doing that much. I completely withdrew from my life. I mean, I did have an advantage. I got fired from my job, so I didn't have a lot to do. So I withdrew from a lot of things, but I was at this bar and I didn't really want to tell people about drinking or not drinking. I still wasn't like fully convinced that this was going to be my life, even though it had gotten better. And I ordered a Shirley Temple and I was like, this is really good. I really like Shirley Temples. And I found an added advantage, which is if you're a 40-year-old man or late 30s, and you tell people you're drinking a Shirley Temple at a bar, they don't ask follow-up questions. They don't like, this guy's drinking a Shirley Temple in a bar, and I don't think I want to know anything else about that particular topic. And so I think that first
It's so
night,
weird.
it's really like, this is okay, cool. They just back away. Like, I don't.
That's awesome.
Something's going on there that I don't want to know about. I think I drank like 8 Shirley Temples at the bar that night. I was in bad shape. So I found Shirley Temples. I did not drink non-alcoholic drinks at first. I really stayed away from them. I did buy into this idea that like, I don't need that in my life. And so I drank a lot of Shirley Temples, a lot of sparkling water. I did find another huge advantage in the Shirley Temple world, which I go to a lot of corporate events. That's it. I spend a lot of time at conferences and I speak and things like that. And if I go to the bar and order a Shirley Temple, almost inevitably someone else will say, oh, I love Shirley Temples. I haven't had one for years. And then they will order one. And then someone else will order one. And all of a sudden I have friends, whether they're sober, not sober, whatever, they're just taking it doesn't matter. There are 4 or 5 people drinking Shirley Temples. And so now I have like a little group of people that I can hang out with that are also, and they don't ask me, like they don't care if I'm drinking or not drinking. And so I found that to be super helpful. In the last few years, I've loved the rise of non-alcoholic drinks. I have them occasionally. I do check in with myself every time I have one just to check my thinking. But it's a huge difference between, and O'Doul's is, I'm glad they were there for people. They are but a lot better options now.
The Shirley, that is,
I love that.
The psychology, because like we've done the club soda and lime and a rock glass, and nobody's going to ask you a question. You bring right in, right? But I love the twist of the Shirley Temple because not only is it bold, first off, right, to be a 30, 40, 50, whatever year old person ordering a Shirley Temple. So it's a conversation starter, which is awesome. And then you get other people that do it. And then you like start a little trend. I think I might have to try.
And what doesn't make you happy? I mean, a Shirley Temple makes you happy. I mean, it makes you smile. Yeah. It's fun. Everybody likes it. I love that. I love it.
That's like awesome.
I love that.
That's probably one of the best hacks we've heard in a long time.
That's going to be a hack. That's going to be.
And we were like, "Aren't you worried about the sugar?" I was like, "Listen,
dude,
I was pouring gin breakfast. This is the least of my problems."
Yeah. So tell us about how you got into coaching.
Oh yeah. I had been thinking about coaching for a while. I was into, I was 6, 7 years sober. I was like, I really want to do something different. And I had started this idea that I wanted to be a public speaker. And so I started this journey of being a public speaker. Here's the thing. It was it was not the best idea because I have 2 small children. So the idea of like traveling the country, being a public speaker, I don't know. My wife was like, go for it. I don't know what her thinking was there. I don't honestly want to know.
Go out of the house.
Right, exactly.
She's like, you know what? He tells me yes all the time. I'm going to go, yes, do it, honey.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, you're traveling 20 weeks a year. Go for it. This will be great. So I thought that that's what I wanted to do. And so I started this journey. And one of the things I started to do was post to TikTok and share my journey a little bit more on TikTok. And then I met a mutual friend of ours, Maggie Clausen's, who I heard her interview on Over the Influence about the Sober Summit that she had coming up. And I was like, that sounds so cool. I would love to be on the Sober Summit. So I reached out to Maggie and we started conversing. And at that point I was like, I don't know how comfortable I am really telling my story. But this is kind of what I'm thinking. And this is what I want to do. And she was like, hey, I have another summit coming up and I want you to be on it. But there's a couple things you need to do. You need to get a website and you need to get some stuff put together. You need some resources, some things to give away. And so I dove head first into this idea of what could I put together and how could I help other people with this idea of starting sobriety in a more approachable way, in the way that I did, the 100-day journey. And so I wrote 100 Days of Sobriety journal, and that turned into 100 Days of Sobriety coaching, which is my signature program. We work through the first 100 days of their recovery, and whether or not their goal is to stay abstinent forever or moderate or, have some other journey in their life. And I just threw myself into this. I learned as much as I could. I took every certification that I could find. And then I started coaching a few people, and I realized that like I had some gaps still. Like relationship coaching, for example. I'm not a relationship coach, but all of my clients, shocker, have some relationship problems. So I got a certification in relationship coaching, not because I'm a relationship coach, but it always comes up. And
Right.
I just found that every time I learned something new, I became a better coach. I was able to help people in a different way. And then I was on Over the Influence, the podcast with Shaz and Ben, which was an amazing experience. And Ben asked me this question in the podcast, are you happy? I was like 8 years sober. And I was like, it reminded me of this question my therapist asked me, which was, do you know what happiness is? And I told Ben on the podcast that I was content. And it reinvigorated this quest that I had been on to find happiness in my life, to like really embody it. And so then I became fascinated with happiness. And I've spent the last year researching happiness and incorporating it in my coaching and really making it a central part of what I do, which is why I tell people that happiness is the opposite of addiction.
That is awesome.
I love that.
Well, and just in talking with you before we started and through this podcast, like, I'm like, I can't see why you would ever need alcohol to be, outgoing. Like, you seem a very happy, outgoing, positive person. I'm like, I don't know why you would ever start drinking in the first place. You seem like you got it all together as far as I know.
But don't you think with it, it's that mindset, and we can train our minds. We absolutely, and we can train our minds to look for the to look for gratitude, to have the gratitude, but then to look for, like Mel Robbins says, go look for hearts.
Right.
Go out, on a walk and just in nature and look for a heart and see that. And when you find it, that opens up the curiosity. And when you do find a heart, because you will, as you're making your mind aware, your RAS, like, okay, we're going to find the hearts, and you find it. And you all of a sudden you're like, I am happier. Like it's setting your intention.
Yep.
That's where I find it. So I love the fact that you're like, happiness, you can be happy. You get to choose every morning if you're going to be happy.
Yeah. I think what Mel points out there's too,
Go ahead.
This idea of, I believe happiness is all around us all the time. We just don't pay attention to it. I was using this example the other day. I let somebody in traffic in a classic zipper merge. So happy with myself. I did the right thing, and they waved. They gave me a wave, and I was like, "Oh, like a little bit of happiness in my life. If I would have let them in and been angry about it and they waved anyway, right? I could have just ignored. That was a little bit of joy in my life. These things are happening to us all the time, and we're either choosing to ignore them or framing them as something different. And when we turn our attention to the life that's going on and these little glimmers of happiness, oh my gosh, life just becomes like, why wouldn't I want to live this way? I don't want to be miserable. I want to be happy.
And I love that you just said glimmer, because I love glimmers. I think that is so awesome. And to be able, like, I just brought that up with some of my clients this week. I'm like, we have to look for glimmers, please. We have this, and I try not to say this is hard, but in reality it is hard, but we get to choose the hard. I know that that's something I think you've said too. I've watched, I think, enough of your videos now, but you have to choose it. You every morning you have that choice. It's just like, again, Dr. Amen, I'm going to have a great day.
Right.
Before I get out of bed, I'm going to have a great day. You have to set that mindset.
Yeah.
So, Austin, I'm curious about your coaching and speaking world. So you have the happiness part, and you have your coaching 100-day process and that story. Do they overlap? Do you teach people about how to be happy in your 100-day? And does your speaking do your speaking engagements include your sobriety story and how to be happy? How does that, they all work together the same, or how do you break those apart?
I started my 100 days of sobriety coaching, which has been always my primary program, kind of with a classic like addiction recovery model. And I because of my training, because of the coaching work that I had done, right? Like, you kind of start that program, and I modeled it a lot on the program that I worked in my first 100 days, which was a very classic alcohol addiction recovery program. I would have them do like a timeline of their drinking, and I would have them write the goodbye letter and all the things that we know work, right? These things work for people. And the more I started talking to people and the more I watched them and the more I learned about happiness, the more this concept of happiness has really influenced the 100 days. So, for example, I start with my clients. We do triggers work first, and we do resources and tools. That's the first week, right? It's an important tool to become aware of your triggers and then to do the work of getting some resources in your toolbox. And then I used to do this. I would go right into, in week 2, we would do what I call the addiction monster work, where we would personify our addiction and we would really go through all the, and I had a client who was like, at the end of her 100 days, like, that was really hard to go from triggers right into addiction monster. It was like we do a lot in the first month. And we started talking more about how the program worked. And I shifted from triggers to the second thing we do, week 2 of the 100 days, is strengths. We go right into strengths. Where are you showing up in your life? What strengths do you have? How does that impact your relationships? How are you living your strengths every day? And we do that. We do a week-long journaling through that. And I was amazed at how much my clients went week 1 trigger work, like, oh my gosh, this is exhausting, it's going to be so hard, to like really excited about the way that their life was going to go and how they were going to move forward. And so I really started pushing this happiness awareness into every week that we work together. And I've been amazed at how much brighter people become faster, and their recovery is like, they get to the point where we all get to, where we're like, this is better. This is a better life. They get there so much faster than they were when I was kind of doing more of a traditional modality.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So then when you speak on stage, is it more about the happiness part?
It's a lot about being present focused.
Okay.
And the happiness has become more and more important. I think mindfulness is one of the, like, if I could do anything in my life to become more mindful, I work on that every single day. That's a big
Sounds like this lady right next to me.
Oh my gosh. I read Dan Harris's book, 10% Happier. And I was like, wait a minute. Is this the whole thing? Is the whole thing mindfulness? Like, if I just could figure that out. And then I read You Are Here, Thich Nhat Hanh's book. And I was like, okay, my goal is to eat an orange and imagine the rain falling. Like, that's my, like, if I could be that intense in my mindfulness, I'm not there yet. I can,
Yeah, but I love the mindfulness, and I just finished up a book called Reconnected by Carlos Whitaker, and it is it's like he does a 7-week journey without screens, which
Pretty extreme one.
and I will tell you, if you can, to listen to the audio is he's a really good storyteller, but he goes and he lives with Catholic monks for 2 weeks in like a silent retreat. And then he goes and he sees his family for a week, and then he goes to live with the Amish.
Oh my gosh.
It is fascinating, but the story of, like really, like this journey of him is like, we get to choose this. We get to choose the happiness. Taking out alcohol and taking away like screens. It's so the same thing almost. I mean, it really is like that addiction to your phone, but it's just this fascinating. I would just so recommend that you listen to it.
I've already written it down. If somebody recommends something to me, I'm like,
it is really good.
It is, but it's that happiness, and that like, we want to be happy. We want this, and the connection with people, and we're removed from that. Still, our society, everything, AI can do this and we can do this, but going and you doing the zigzag thing, like accepting, like, oh, look at that. They're not cutting me off. They're not the 10%. You brought that up the other day at a group we were in.
1% each day.
Or 1% each day.
Yeah.
But it's just that, I'm in positive intelligence coach. And one of the things is like, you want to like enjoy and savor your cup of coffee. Like, what does coffee taste like? Well, you can't have a full experience with that when you have your phone open, when you have all of that. You can just sit there and go, oh, I'm going to just me and my coffee right now for a minute.
Yeah.
And when you do those things, it's just.
And what alcohol robs all that, right?
Yeah,
Austin? I mean, like, because that becomes your focus of everything. Like, your focus is your next drink, not being mindful about things, right?
Yeah, totally. It steals everything. I mean, it steals everything from you. It steals your peace of mind. It steals your relationships. It steals time. It takes everything. And I think that when you can take that time to pause, I had somebody, we were talking about happiness the other day. I posted something on Instagram and somebody commented, I made my coffee perfectly this morning and it tastes great. And I was like, what an amazing moment of like like, not only did I do this and it like that they noticed that that's what their life was like. What an amazing way to start your day, instead of chugging that cup of coffee and then like, oh, I gotta go grind at work. Right. Like,
right.
Even if you go do the same job, that your experience is going to be totally different if you start your day that way. So
yeah. She's looking at me like, told you.
for me, the happiness and mindfulness and all this becomes like one thing, because I think what I see in our culture so much is people striving for happiness. They're looking for it. And I tell my clients every day, you can have happiness one of two places. It can be in the future, in some future state, something that you're going to achieve, something that's going to change, or it can be here with you today. You get to choose. Where is it going to be? The problem with moving it to tomorrow is that you're never going to find it. You're always going to move it again. And so just it's much easier to have here. And that requires mindfulness. It acquires that awareness in our lives, and it requires looking for it.
Yep.
Well, I think that is really that wraps it up so perfectly.
Yes. So, but I always get my last question.
You go ahead and do your last question.
All right. So you've kind of answered it, but that's okay. That's okay. My question was more retrospect, but as of today, other than maybe a Shirley Temple, what's your go-to NA drink?
Ooh. Okay. I'll do two. One is any flavor of sparkling water. I have no less than 12 flavors of sparkling water in my house at any one time. It is overkill, but I love variety. I am really liking. Ooh, this is such a tough question. This seems like such an easy question. I like the Mingle mocktails a lot, and I've been drinking the pineapple Paloma right now. It's like,
I have not had that one. I had the margarita last night.
Is it the key lime one?
Yes.
Oh my God, that one's so good.
I know. And you know what? I think there's the other thing. When we're just drink, whatever we were drinking, you have to sit there and think, I wasn't even tasting anything. It was just like, oh yeah, maybe I tasted a couple of them that were full of sugar, but now it's like, oh my gosh, this tastes so good. So I love that. I love all
Love
of
the
the. Oh
mingles.
my gosh, and we are addicted to flavored water.
We have a lot.
Go to Wally's if you're ever on a road trip.
Wally's has their own.
Wally's
truck
has
stop
their own
flavored-
truck stop water now.
truck stop flavored water, sparkling water.
So good.
Wait. You said truck stop flavored water, and I just want to make
Well,
sure that it's flavored water
well-
from a truck stop and not
Yes.
truck stop
It's-
flavored.
sorry,
I'm trying to
it's
imagine what
Wally's truck
flavored-
stop
It's
branded.
Wally's truck stop, their brand of water.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough.
It's
I am,
hilarious, but
I'm-
it's so good.
I drink brand name water. It is like a line item budget in our house, right? Like brand it's either LaCroix, Bubbly, or Waterloo. And I refuse to bend on that. Like I will give up a lot of things, but not my brand name water.
Hey, you know what? You're saving a lot on other things. So I
Oh,
think
yeah.
you're right.
Totally.
I think we're ahead. I think
Hey,
we're
right?
ahead now.
I'm definitely money ahead.
If people want to talk to you about speaking engagements or the 100-day program, how do they find you?
Sure. Yeah. On all social media, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook at Austin J. Karr. And it's Karr. And then my website, austinjkarr.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I hope we can have you come back on. Maybe we'll just dive into just all things happiness, mindfulness. Maybe we'll try to do something.
Oh, Lord, two mindful people with me. Ugh. You people won't give up.
Thank you so much, Austin.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a real pleasure.
Well, thank you, Austin Karr, for being on the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast. We talked to him before the podcast. We talked to him
I know,
for 15 minutes after.
He's just a wealth of information.
Yeah.
He's contagious.
He is 100%. Yeah.
I love it. He's got me energized. I'm going to
Take
get
on the
out
wagon,
there.
get it.
Yeah. And I love his hack about ordering a Shirley Temple.
That's one of the coolest hacks I've heard in a while.
It was
Yeah.
great. So
Got to do that.
Order yourself a Shirley Temple. What can't make you smile
There you go.
than a Shirley Temple?
There you
So
go. All right, Coach Amy. Well, that's it for us for this week, kids. Wishing you peace and love from the cornfields. I'm Matt, along with Coach Amy, and we are
out.